I almost definitely do not. This is like a different thing.
We did what we did because we believed in the message, and we believed that it was our duty to let people know what was about to happen.
How long have I been in the just chatting category?
A radio station made a prediction.
Well, that's
That
fascinating.
caught the attention of the world.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
Read the flyer, and the flyer said that Judgment Day was May 21st.
Well, now I don't have to change anything.
When I first heard the message of May 21st, I wasn't completely convinced.
Once I came to the belief that the world really is going to end, it was very overwhelming for me personally. It was very overwhelming.
When I tell people I'm leaving that every day as it's my last day, somehow they're not cheering.
May 21 is the day of judgment. It is a terrible day of destruction all over the world.
How could somebody...
I think the world ended in 2016?
But on the inside, everything makes sense to them.
The more a person invests in taking a public stance, the more difficult it is to say, oh boy, I was wrong.
This is a story of how people believe. How we turn beliefs into certainties.
This is the scan of chat's brain as they want to see whole.
Truth.
You want to believe.
We're at the headquarters here, Family Radio headquarters. We're in California, in Oakland, California. Family Radio began in 1958 in February and has been on the air since. Currently we have 66 AM and FM stations throughout the U.S. and then dispensed through satellite throughout the world.
Does comforts me in a weird way? The thought of apocalypse?
As you can see, Family Radio is just a group of...
Oh, we just switched over to React Stream.
This is our first floor, and we have our materials room here, where most of our materials are available. So our booklets and our publications, everything we have, as I said, is free of charge, and we send them out, and we send out a lot of materials. We have translated our materials into 61 different languages.
Oh my god.
And we're getting now into the smaller languages of the world.
Oh my god.
At one time, this whole parking lot was full of RVs before they went out. These two RVs are just going to be for local use, for individuals that want to distribute tracts or go out in the Northern California area.
Doesn't feel like a smaller operation.
I've listened to a lot of their the reasons behind it, and they're very confident that they're right and Mr. Camping's wrong. But then when I listen to them and ask them, okay, give it to me, let me hear it. I want to hear it. What you got to say, why you don't think it's true.
Can you prove a negative? You know what I mean?
There's no frills here.
What are you going to do with all this material? You're not going to be able to do anything with it unless you do it between now and May 21.
Oh my god.
That's not a lot of time. You know, some people have a secret hope.
Use a spoon. Elite, there's nothing wrong with it.
Happen, and then they can write a book afterwards about it.
Or make a documentary.
And but the fact is, it's going to happen. So their desire, their dreams are not going to come true. But that's.
Why not? For katsu curry? That's what you do over here. When you go to the curry place, they don't even give you chopsticks. You just get a spoon.
For 50 years, 89-year-old Harold volunteered as a Bible teacher for family radio.
If you check the Bible, you'll find they were all buried.
In recent years, his focus had shifted to figuring out the end of time and Judgment Day.
So they're headed for Judgment Day. These kind of signs are all in evidence.
The main outlet for his ideas was a daily call-in show.
1,000 languages.
Now we present Open Forum.
That sounds like all of the languages.
Bible teacher Harold Camping.
Welcome to the Open Forum.
The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. What does that mean?
That this action, which was a pretty serious action, taking the life of his brother.
I think he said May 12th.
He was not getting away with it at all.
Or 21st?
As well as taking questions about the Bible, the Open Forum helped Harold shape his ideas.
Until 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, I would never have dared to say, absolutely, I know. Together with the help of others, we've been able to talk about these things as we go along and to help to lock them in.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
What would happen if your whole prediction didn't happen?
I can't entertain any question that suggests that it's not true.
You're teaching erroneous doctrine. St. Paul would consider you a heretic.
I learned so much from you over the past 5 years. I just want to thank you for leading me to the truth.
Okay, God bless you, Harold, and I hope I bump into you on the way up.
And as they became convinced, they felt compelled to warn the world so others could be saved.
See you in hell. Or heaven.
A little over 3 weeks from now, when the graves will open and out.
I mean, it's serious, man. Like, people are making
whatever remains, it will come
plans for dying.
with a glorified spiritual body.
Family Radio has started a new project called Project Raise Your Banner, and what we're doing is we're equipping believers that know and understand about Judgment Day, which is in about 27 days.
I'm a little familiar with it. I'm sure
Someone walking by,
they're going to get into it, Amatsu.
and then of course this side is Spanish. How many billboards do we have? I would have to say we are about 1,200 in the U.S. and about 2,000 overseas.
I'm laid off right now, but I'm looking for work, you know, like maybe once a week.
You gotta walk around and you can pass out checks.
Well, I'm just still afraid from my relatives mostly.
No, 2012.
Would you like one, sir? Would you like some info? I probably would have been in front of my computer checking what stock is doing what and what's up, what's down.
No, I got a candy.
Immersed in the markets, in the
A sour candy.
all that doesn't matter now. Like one? Check it out. God bless. You too, brother. You too. Have a wonderful day, man.
When we see people with a strong conviction, it's easy to forget they didn't always hold that belief. So how did they feel the first time they heard about May 21?
That guy's dedicated, man.
Watching TV and
Out there on the sidewalk, big sign.
He called me and he said, "Hey, have you heard on the open forum? Brother Camping is saying now the date. He's saying the date, May 21st."
some eccentric guy on campus, so I took a flyer from him and I read the flyer, and the flyer said that, you know, that Judgment Day was May 21st.
My son who lives with me was a little concerned. He felt that, I don't know if I could believe this, Mom, you know, and this is what he's teaching. I don't know if I want to listen to family radio anymore.
At that time, I was just getting done with the remodeling of the house, and in April we bought it, but it took us so many months to get it done, and I wasn't even listening to the radio at that time.
I didn't give it much credence, I didn't give it much attention. You know, I just put it away and ignored it.
My reaction, on the other hand, was to say, well, let's take a deep breath, let's see where he's getting the information from first, and then let's see what we find out about that and decide on our own.
But how did they go from being unsure?
I mean, they believe it.
The certainty they displayed so
I know. They're out there.
We came up with this analogy of the pyramid because I think it really captures how people can get themselves entrapped in a belief and a set of actions that over time takes them very far from their original intentions.
There are two people standing at the tip of the pyramid, and at that point they're very close together, meaning their attitudes about a particular thing
Yes, Dwarven Man.
almost identical, just a hair's breadth apart.
They have to make a decision. Do I want to blow the whistle on this illegal activity in my office or not? Do I want to stay in this bad marriage or not? Do I want to cheat on this exam or not? Do I want to believe the world is going to end or not?
Now my guess is they're listening to him because they enjoy what he's saying. They're pretty much in agreement with his general
Like premium stuff?
philosophy. Once he makes that specific prediction, however, my guess is that he lost some people. They started sliding down the other end of the pyramid.
I mean, you know, it's a big deal to be like, man, the world's going down.
This is crazy. He has no way of knowing when the world is going to come to an end. But those who take that one step off on this side saying, he's an honest man, he's a smart man, maybe he does know something that I don't know. And sure enough, to the person who just looks at the things he's pointing to, it can become pretty convincing.
Once a person takes a step in one direction or another, they will justify that choice. They set in action
Cognitive dissonance.
a series of self-justifications which lead to further action, which leads to further self-justification. That's why the more a person invests in time, in effort, in taking a public stance, the more difficult it is to say, oh boy, I was wrong. Then as
Thank me.
each
You're welcome.
person moves down those sides of the pyramid, justifying their belief in camping or their not belief in camping, they move further and further away from each other.
Meaning their attitudes, one step at a time, become more and more strengthened in the direction.
When did I change from social distance? You still got the SD in my name, man.
Sunday,
It was always
morning,
also known as Shepherd,
11
right?
a.m.,
So never, technically.
I'll be having my graduation ceremony.
I haven't.
When you have all the evidence going through with the finals and the graduation,
Oof.
it doesn't mean anything.
You feel bad for the kid.
Inwardly, I just wanted to walk away. But at the same time, I also thought about, you know, my mom and how she would feel about that. And, you know, all the work that she put into me to...
Oh, did he finish school? All right, so he is finishing. Okay.
I have spoken to my friends about this, and they were just like me at the beginning, you know, when I first saw this as a freshman. You know, not giving it any credence, just thinking that it's just the production.
I mean, I don't know what simulation we're on right now on Lucky, but there's, I mean, it's always, it feels like almost every other year somebody is like predicting the end of the world.
And look at even me.
To be fair, it's strange that it hasn't ended.
When beliefs separate us from other people,
All things
we
considered.
can see them as ignorant, stupid, or fundamentally different, for having ideas we see as wrong. But is there a difference in how we believe? Neuroscientists in Los Angeles had studied what belief looks like inside the brain. Maurice was about to perform one of their experiments.
One of the things that motivated our experiments about contrasting belief and disbelief was the question really, is there a difference in belief about certain topics, or was belief a fundamental process in the brain?
I like that he's willing to be hooked up. Man, that thing looks intense, dude.
Study to look across content areas, look at belief per se without concerning ourselves with belief in any particular thing. So you would ask, do you have a brother named Bob? Do you have $5 in your pocket? Is Texas south of Wisconsin? And so on. And our subjects would indicate by pressing a button whether they believed or disbelieved in these statements. We're then able to look at the differences in signal in the MRI in the belief and disbelief conditions.
That's crazy looking little helmet they put on him.
Inside the scanner, Maurice responded to statements about his general beliefs and about May 21 and the rapture. How would these different beliefs show up in the brain?
This is about
this movie shows
apocalypse
the evolution
cults?
of the brain activity that occurs when somebody believes a given statement. So the area of your brain that seems to be most activated when you're believing something is this ventromedial prefrontal region.
In the original experiments with a group of subjects, Mark's team looked
He
at the
wants to
difference
know,
in brain
Dwarven Man.
activity between believing and disbelieving.
What we have here are some of the data contrasting brain signals in the functional MRI. The top panel here shows a region whose signal increased during the conditions of belief compared to disbelief. Contrast at the bottom here is looking at regions of the brain whose signal was less during the belief conditions than in the disbelief conditions. And you can see the patterns are quite different for these two states.
They discovered that this difference is consistent for all kinds of beliefs: factual, ethical, and religious. They then compared belief in religious and non-religious people. Despite giving opposite answers to religious questions, the belief and disbelief brain activity for the two groups was almost identical.
What?
So the way our brains accept beliefs as true or reject them as false appears to be the same for all of us.
All right. So there's got to be like
This
some
used to be
major
my Wall
structures
Street.
in the brain.
On Main Street, I have, I think, 3 separate computers.
A lot
hooked
of
up to,
stockbrokers
special power
involved in this
source,
thing, huh?
Just in case if lights go out in the neighborhood, I would still
I'm
be
not
able
familiar
to
with it,
trade.
Hook.
So I don't lose out anything. And here, and then at the same time, while I'm doing trades, I can keep an eye on the kids playing in the pool. So yeah, this used to be my workstation. I haven't turned on this computer for a long time. Sometimes I just turn only one of them and check some stuff. But
How many computers does he have?
you know, there was not like a one day that I stopped. It was
He's
just slow progress of getting.
I
all-
feel like this exercise
You know, there was-
bike is like a mood as far as exercise bikes. It looks like he might be using that treadmill.
It's not like a one day that I stopped. It was just slow progress of getting out of my positions, and that takes time. It was not like, you know, click, close, that's it.
For me, I have to say, the more I studied, it's not a moment. It happens just without you even realizing. So the more you're learning, just your insight changes. You start seeing things differently.
Isn't it like too small?
Or maybe this piece.
Okay. Remember, we were together reading 1 Thessalonians 5, and we were both, wow. We read it before, obviously, we heard it before, but it wasn't as clear as it is now. Live your life today as if it's your last day. And everybody cheering, yes, such a wise thing to say. When I tell people I'm living that every day as it's my last day, somehow they're not cheering. Well, I'm cheering. I love this. I love how we can cherish the moments.
I mean, it seems like a nice way to live outside of
We see things differently.
maybe actually believing life is going to end. You know what I mean? Getting out of his way of making money, that feels real
We went
sad.
back and forth, and kept listening to the information as he was putting it out there. After a bit, we became convinced that yes, it was truthful, and we were at peace with it. I had been with my company for 18 years, and I became so convinced that I had asked for a leave of absence for the entire month of May, which they had already granted. But in thinking about it, I decided, well, if I ask for a leave of absence, that means that I expect to come back, and I can't really say to the people that I work with, people that I've known for 18 years, why I'm leaving. And that will really weigh heavily on my heart.
Oh, no.
So instead of that, I decided to quit. And I turned in my resignation, and I was able to, express to everyone why I was quitting. And it made it a lot better experience for me.
Oh, no.
On the 22nd, you may find yourself here, but it's not going to be the world as you know it. It's not going to be a place that you're going to want to be found in.
I grew up with family radio because Mr. Camping is my father.
I mean, my understanding is it was a very popular radio station for a very long time.
In 2011, and
oh, they have an exact
date,
date, Frenchie.
That, and I was studying it myself and thinking about it, and that was really a strong enough feeling for me that that was one of the reasons I wanted to come work here. Maybe a year ago, I was thinking, what if I'm wrong? Or what if we haven't figured this out right? Then what will happen? I was kind of waffling back and forth because I wasn't sure.
There might have, maybe I did see that one albino.
Because it's so important, and I took it very seriously.
I think I read a book on him, too.
I really need to know. Once I came to the belief that the world really is going to end, it was very overwhelming for me personally. It was very overwhelming. I began not sleeping at night because all I could think about was, what can I do in my life between now and then? And am I ready to meet God? What if the world's going to end and I'm not ready? Or what about my children? What about my grandchildren? I have grandchildren that are babies.
I mean, this guy's got the date.
It affected my relationship with my children. Just because I believed the world was going to end doesn't mean that they believed the world was going to end. And when you're 18 or 20 years old, that's not what you want to hear. I've come to the point now where
it's highlighted in pink. It's got a little pink circle around it.
I never think, what if? I look at that calendar constantly, and I look at that as being the last day I will be on this earth.
That's kind of funny to me for some reason. We're gonna, or I mean, I'm sure they're gonna get into it, Frenchie.
Mr. Camping is not endorsing it, but they are just going to do a study, so it's up to you. Okay?
That's the whole point of the documentary. To their credit, they're putting a lot of time into the pre.
Normally offer money as the incentive, just because it's very consistent across people.
The pre-doomsday.
People have the possibility of taking $5 today, or potentially they could make up to $500 in 4 weeks' time. When at that point the end of the world was announced to be in 2 weeks.
Our sense was to put them in this position where to really make it costly to actually say this, because it's very easy to say that you believe something, but when it actually is really costly, that becomes much more.
Oh my God, they're like mega trolling them.
25 said, I want the $5 today. I have no interest in the $500. And that was something which we honestly did not expect. We expected at some point there would be kind of a trade-off. A lot of the time they didn't take the money, or they said donate it to Family Radio. Amazingly, when I went to donate the money to Family Radio, they actually said we don't need it. We've already paid for all the billboards, so we have no need for this.
Oh my God.
Are you going on a trip? Yeah.
I mean, I think this is interesting because obviously over human civilization, there's definitely been people that have taken advantage of religion one way or the other to scam people. But this isn't that. I mean, they really believed it the whole way through.
Harley's in my garage, it's crying. My friend called me, they said, dude, you ain't
I'll
gonna
be right
put
back,
it
just
down
gotta pee
Bill?
again. We got through the
Brother,
2 liters
you
again,
stand for
guys.
that.
Another
This
2
time
liter
we're
day.
doing in the harvest, man.
This isn't a permanent structure, so, you know, it's just another way to get the gospel out.
Is there anything in your philosophy courses that you've learned that puts a doubt on this?
One of my courses in philosophy of science has taught me of the fallacies of the powers of induction. There's always the possibility in that framework that you could possibly be wrong, because there's always something else outside that you probably didn't take into account, or that you just didn't observe, or you just didn't get to yet. But at this point, I don't see anything that can discredit May 21st being Judgment Day. It does still feel like it's
The date was when the world would start to end.
but also in outward sense, it's very concrete, and it makes a lot of sense. You can explain it to someone.
It's been 12 years. What these people thought of the pandemic?
Over many years, Harold Camping and fellow believers constructed an intricate scheme, a puzzle in which all the pieces fit. At its heart was a biblical calendar of the history and destiny of mankind. Key events in the calendar were linked by numbers with spiritual meaning that told a story about salvation. For the believers, overwhelming evidence pointed to 2011 as the year of the end, and to May 21 as the exact date.
From the date that Christ was hanging on the cross, we know that with great accuracy. To May 21 is exactly 722,500 days inclusive, and when we break it breaks down into two time patterns, identical time patterns, that identify exactly with what the gospel is. Because it breaks down into time, that's the atonement, Christ demonstrating on the cross, times 10, that's the completeness of whatever's in view, the completeness of God's salvation plan.
I don't know where they're getting the numbers from.
Is describing salvation for all of God's people, because our salvation is completed when we receive our glorified spiritual bodies, and that will be on May 21. Right. And then it's doubled, right, showing that it's a step.
Oh, hold on, that's the hold on. But like, where do you get 5, 10, and 17? And then double. I mean,
and it's
I just
shortly going to come to pass.
Surely come to pass.
Boy, when I saw that, I thought, there's no way that it can happen.
This is a rank system?
No way.
That's how we get G rank. It's square. Yeah, it's squared basically.
Very analytical book, so it fits together very beautifully, very beautifully. That's why most theologians have trouble there. Most of them are philosophical. They get frightened when you get into scientific questions of one kind or another. But this has never been a problem for me simply because I was trained as a civil engineer.
Harold wasn't the first to treat the Bible as an analytical book. In the 19th century, another man walked the same path to certainty. William Miller, a farmer from New England.
Oh, same deal?
Miller thought he had discovered something that no one else had seen in the Bible. And there's the eureka moment that somebody has, and I think they have knowledge that nobody else possesses. Miller develops
That's kind of a
idea
funny
that
illustration
if
of
he can
it.
successfully calculate based on genealogies in the Bible when the world began.
Well, I'm just trying to, like, where did those numbers come from, and the interpretation of those numbers, and the multiplication of the numbers, and then the doubling of the numbers?
He can fairly well predict.
It's one thing to say somewhere in the Bible it predicts the world will end and everything else that goes along with it. But I mean, the day, the year, the decade, the century.
He tells his audience in his book that he's shocked when he comes to this conclusion. And he, at first, is worried to tell people about this because it's 1817. So he sits on this for a few years and then eventually begins to bring up this topic with neighbors and with church friends. And then eventually they say, you got to publicize this. If Jesus is coming in year 1843, people have got to know this. In Miller's book, you have page after page of computations. And then he would present these computations and show all the way through how he was accurate.
I'm sure he didn't make a mistake with the math. It's just like the
By the time he
interpretations.
was done, the members of the churches would be absolutely convinced that his mathematics were correct. The prophets are absolutely convinced of what they're doing. This was the case with Miller. He goes to his grave believing that he was right, baffled that it didn't work. Jesus didn't come in 1843, 1844, but that didn't stop later generations of prophets from using the same method in order to show that maybe he was wrong in his calculations, but they are now correct in their calculations. 1878 with Charles Russell and Jehovah's Witnesses, 1914, 1916, 1918, 1925, 1966.
You'd almost feel like it's a real faux pas to believe that somebody came up with a mathematical calculation. He was wrong, but I'm going to get it right this time. You know? Like you gotta at some point you gotta be like, I'm real badass.
Was different.
September 6th of 1994.
And then even if you do believe that you're right, you then have to believe in it so much that you feel like you have to tell other people as well.
Even if the world doesn't end, camping's cheerful about the future.
So you keep going. If it doesn't happen, you're just keep on
I
trucking.
just won't retire.
Right.
I'm planning to retire in September, but if it doesn't happen, I can't retire. I got to keep working.
In 1994, there was an alternative.
This Reddit post of the guy who thought he survived the submarine implosion. Oh, he said he would have found a way out.
Time for Mr. Camping because
he thinks he's the main character.
People were saying, "See, you told you were a false prophet." It was like we were running, and we thought we saw the finish line that said the finish line, 1994. But then, as we got closer and got to it, it was a sign that said, "Finish line 2 miles."
It's almost funny now, but not really. But I kept my kids out of school that day. Because I thought, what if he's right? If the world's going to end today, I want my kids here at home, not at school. I still remember sitting in the living room with my children. And so we sat in the living room, looking out the window. We had no idea. But that's what we knew back then. There was so much we didn't understand yet. And then, of course, it didn't happen. And then my daughter said, "Mom, you ruined my perfect attendance record." I said, "Yes, but it seemed like such an important reason." As time went by, everything started falling into place. The verses that didn't make sense to me before made total sense. Things that seemed contradictory because we didn't understand it right, now everything fits.
Dude, attendance record,
so
literally perfect attendance is there to make you a good employee in the future. Like, that's all it is. Oh, you never had a sick day? Good. Here, get a little certificate. Oh, we're all so proud of you. Never take a sick day for your employer.
It finally came to the point where when he was teaching about 2011, and I looked at all we've learned in the last 5 or 10 years, and I said, oh, this is so different from 1994.
In 2011, May 21 of 2011, there is no way out, and it's like a labyrinth where you've somehow gotten to this corner and there is no exit. There is no alternative. There is no plan B. There is no other way.
There's no human being in the whole wide world who has ever been in this state of anticipation and fear and hope. That's never happened before.
It's just Twitch chat waiting for the reveal.
In the history of the world.
They're
We
very
happen to
focused,
be
man.
the end time generation.
The Heaven's Gate cult? Oh, yeah.
On that last Sunday,
And that one is a little
showed up
bit
at the
darker than this one. This one, I don't think is nearly
and
as
after
that
the
bad.
service, they stayed for much longer. A strange mix of anticipation.
This one
and
is
morality
unfortunate, but I don't,
hung in the air.
you know, it was not like a suicide cult or anything like that. You know what I mean?
For 50 years, I've been doing this program, the Open Forum, and a minimum of 5 nights a week. But tonight is going to be our last.
I mean, some lives
because
definitely
I
got
would
hurt.
like to have that
I don't,
last night for me
I don't know
and
that
my
anyone has
family
said or
for
done anything that
privacy.
maybe ruined their life.
21st is a normal day. Should we remember that Harold Camping is a man who made a mistake?
The problem is that May 21 will not be a normal day. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt it is going to happen. And we don't even countenance a question, what if it doesn't happen? It's going to happen.
I mean, I would just feel so guilty for
Found this
everything that
that's all
happens
Heaven's
to
had for me. It
everyone.
says,
You know, I
"Josh,
mean,
thank you
even
for
the
all your help and
poor
diligence in
kids
getting the tracks to the listeners.
having to
You've been
hang
great
out in the living room with their
encouragement to me.
mom
God
all
bless
day
you.
waiting for the world to end. I mean, that's just awkward.
Yeah, I guess that's it for this
It's
week.
an awkward
Probably gonna
day.
Spend the rest of the time with the family. So I'm kind of the last guy holding down the fort right now. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mean, look, no matter what happens, it wouldn't be a normal day. It would be a day that everybody stayed home.
The Lord is going to come first, but then there's going to be a great earthquake for the people that are left behind. It'll be 6 p.m. in all of these countries. After it has hit Kiribati Islands, you're going to know about it.
The apocalypse is going to respect time zones?
You're going to hear it in the news.
What?
Tomorrow.
Each island going to have earthquake,
Yeah, you're going to hear it in the
going to
news.
open up.
Kiribati, mega earthquake.
I like that idea. I like that the apocalypse
Before May 21.
will
News teams
just
and protesters
move
gathered outside
at 6
family
p.m. Like waiting, like you just gotta wait. You're just sitting at
station was
home,
closed,
like in your little
and
armchair,
most
like,
believers were at
God
home,
damn it.
quietly preparing. Jane had opened her house to fellow believers that night.
I mean, the
Together
thing
they would
is
wait for news
like
of the rapture.
everyone, everyone they've interviewed has been like really nice. Like that's the thing is like you feel bad because like there's nobody here that seems mean at all. misguided, obviously, but like not mean or ill-intentioned or anything.
And the earthquake. It would first strike islands in the Pacific Ocean, 11 p.m. California time.
Wait, what?
And then spread westwards across the world.
Yeah, I mean, because it's got to start and then work its way around time zone-wise.
Oh, thank you, Jane. Thank you.
Is tomorrow. Why do they think so? We go inside the biggest doomsday movement in a generation, all the way to the man who started it.
Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Cynthia McFadden. We begin tonight with the end of the world. Right now, thousands of people across America are literally preparing to meet their maker before the sun sets tomorrow.
So here you are. You're a believer that the world is going to come to an end on May 21st, and you're sitting with other believers waiting for the world to end. The clock is ticking and the hours are creeping by, perhaps, and the world isn't ending.
So every time I talk to people who knew how to break down that timeline, they confirm the accuracy of his timeline.
May 21st, 2011. That's
6 p.m.
At 6 p.m. That's the crucial time and day.
Getting down to the minute, man.
The earth trembles.
Down to the exact minute, 6 p.m., man.
Everything, you know, everything that, all the security that I know in this world, I've you know, pretty much put it aside. And do I feel any regret about that? Absolutely not. If anything, my faith is becoming stronger and stronger. It's a battlefield. It's not.
See, the signs are all here. We are doomed. I know it. I know it.
Is that it? No, it's a battlefield. They showed that earlier.
They're trying to say somebody's right.
Right.
What are they watching?
For real?
It's a war zone of some sort.
As the world fails to end, you are beginning to feel more and more agitated. Is this going to happen or is this not going to happen?
So, I mean, that's the question I had. If that had happened...
A call from a tsunami or an earthquake or a destruction.
Right, who would be there to report that it was? But then, wait a minute, but then the earthquake would register on the Richter scales all over the world.
It's 12 here, whatever. It's 3 in the morning there.
There's so many different possibilities right now that is hard to say. If by 6 o'clock in the morning, we haven't heard something, then that part of the world is already experiencing the 22nd, which would then
time
draw
zones?
into question the 21st. But it's not 6 o'clock yet, folks. So you know,
6 in the morning. I'm telling you.
6 in the morning. There's still the other possibility. Any time between now and then, actually.
6 in the morning the next day?
As the anxiety rises between I'm waiting for the world to end and it isn't ending, the dissonance will start to feel more and more acute. Dissonance, you understand, is as uncomfortable as hunger and thirst. It's a motivational state. We may not know that that's the term for it, but it's that feeling in your gut that something is not right here. And so as that anxiety builds...
Wait, albino, excuse me? Did it happen? And then they had to replace everyone with NPCs?
People, as they see the prophecy is not going to pan out, they will then have to find some way to reduce that anxiety, to reduce that feeling.
You either have to break or you have to believe it more.
Judgment Day, May 21. I mean, the entire United States has been informed. Could we have seen that even a month ago? We could have seen that happening, but yet that's what he said would happen. He says, believe me, before this thing happens, everyone in the world will have heard. The majority, and that's exactly
I think
what
you're
he said.
real.
And I'm seeing this happening right now. I mean, you can talk all you want about the negative press, but everyone is being informed.
I created it.
In a way that
It would have been around
6 in the morning is going to be a whole different world.
2002 maybe?
The world's going to be singing.
2003? 20 years ago, almost? I was 8. Yeah, I was a pretty advanced child.
6 in the morning came and went.
At least they're walking their dogs.
With still no news of earthquakes or the rapture, believers were struggling to make sense of the delay. Many pushed back the time. Some started to question the prophecy.
I don't think it's a cult, Kaiser. I think it's like a sex thing.
Spoken to Tom Evans. You know anything?
Yeah, they're rocking out, man.
The whole world is mocking us, you know, and we came to people with the love of God in our hearts.
The Bible is still true. Read it under study block. It's going to happen today at 5:40 p.m. California time. Just stay in the Word.
I'm still waiting.
Yeah, it's got to be hard being in California for this. You got like one of the latest time zones, having to go the whole day and have people dogging on you.
No interviews. No interviews. Give me a day. No interviews at all today. Sorry. You know, this is a big deal. And I've got to live with. I've got to think it out. And so no interviews.
You can tell. I mean, he feels terrible.
Nobody here today, though.
So May 11th, 2011 would have been 3 years after the massive recession. It would have been the lead up into an election year between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. The economy was getting better, but still very bad. Geopolitically, like internationally, I mean, I can't remember it quite as well, but, you know, I think that might have been around the time when there were some tensions between Russia and Crimea. I forget if that was in the first or the second part of Barack Obama's presidency. They would have passed Obamacare at that point. So we would have had that. And then that was basically the start from really 2011 until 2016. Almost nothing got done politically because it was complete stalemate in the Congress and in the Senate. I mean, it was basically 6 years of nothing.
I came here to see a few friends, make sure they're okay, because I've been through it at 94, so I kind of know how things go.
With some others, started working on the Monster Hunter podcast. And Monster Hunter Try It Let's Play. It was actually probably right around May 11th, 2011 that I uploaded my first video. First Monster Hunter video.
It just leads to confusion, separation.
May 21st, around then.
Everyone like, okay, there's that crazy Christian group. What are they up to? Instead of all the things that are a blessing about the Christian life. It does amaze me how someone who studies 10 hours a day, retires.
Oh no, that probably been around. I'm sorry, that would have been around 2010.
His whole life into studying these
not 2011. I uploaded
so far from where he hoped to be. He was studying day and night to make sure that he wasn't leading anybody the wrong way from what he saw in the Bible. You have to own your mistakes, and you have to own your victories. The victories are a lot easier to own. The mistakes are a lot harder. I hope I never hear another date.
Oh, the end of the U.S. imperialist age? I don't know, man. We just have so many weapons. It's dates. So hard.
You know, I don't even want my daughter to go out on a date. I just don't want to hear about dates anymore.
We had all of our dates correct. We had all the proofs correct. They don't change at all. Every proof, every sign is all correct. We're just learning that we have to be looking at all of this a little bit more spiritual, but it won't be spiritual on October 21.
Ooh, is he going out with another day?
Because the Bible clearly teaches that then the world is going to be destroyed.
Oh man, he's doubling down, dude.
What advice do you give those followers who did take you literally and spent everything they had and are worried about how they're going to survive between now and October 21st?
I'll tell you what has happened to the average person that has been faithfully listening to family radio isn't nearly as grievous as it has happened to countless people during this present.
Yeah, the recession was real
They've
bad.
lost their homes and so on and so on. So
Some people
please,
did give up their
please,
homes, but what is the
people-
advice to them?
People cope. People
Just
cope.
to cope?
I disagree with you, Machado, because I honestly don't think, because like a scammer is somebody who scams with intention, and I really believe he does not think he's scamming anyone. I think he actually believes what he is saying.
You have not actually apologized publicly, have you? Are you prepared to?
You already asked your question. Just wait.
Are you prepared to apologize?
You're gonna come in. Okay.
Hold on, we have to pause for a moment.
Be next after.
Even after doubling, because he's not asking for money other than handing out flyers and putting up billboards. You know what I mean?
I want to say something to you guys.
He doesn't live
One thing I noticed
lavishly.
about the media is you want to blame him now, even though you are the ones. You're duplicit in this as well, and you can't just turn your cameras on him when you have taken and run with this, and you love this story because it's good for you.
If people want me to apologize, I can apologize. Yes, I did not have all of that worked out as accurately as I should have, or I wish I could have had it. And when I make an error, then I say, yes, I was wrong. It was to be understood spiritually.
Can we interview you after October 21st?
May you? If I would stand here, of course you could. But I'm not going to be here after October 21st. Okay? I'm going to go. Yeah.
He needs another 6 months. What do you like? Forget to carry the 6 or the 3? Because you double the 3, right? No, I don't. Other than the thing that makes this story more palatable, Fuxo, is my understanding is obviously some people had some real messed up stuff happen in their life, but to my knowledge, and we're gonna, I mean, it's only like what 20 minutes left. There's not like murder, suicide, stuff like that goes on. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of really disappointed people. If it were that dark, I don't know that I'd want to watch it on stream. It's pretty messed up.
When the earthquakes and rapture didn't happen, believers felt a deep discomfort. They were experiencing cognitive dissonance. A state we need to get away from, quickly.
Some of them would double down
believe
into their
that
belief.
We're better than average, that we're smarter than average, that we're more ethical or moral than average, that we're sensible, decent people. When we do something that violates that general self-concept that we have, it creates cognitive dissonance.
What dissonance means is, we who see ourselves as good, kind, competent people, if we are now confronted with evidence that we just did something that was unkind, hurtful, foolish, incompetent, or wrong, we have a choice. We can say, I better revise my view of myself, or we dismiss the evidence. Most people take the direction of least resistance. It's easier to dismiss the evidence than to change our view of ourselves. Now, of course, there's a third way. I remain a good person, and the thing I did remains a wrong thing, a bad thing, and a harmful thing. Now, how do I learn from this bad thing I did or this foolish belief I held so that I don't repeat it but without it affecting my basic self-concept that I'm pretty good.
Is this a dog whistle for the flock sleeper agents? Yes.
Everybody was listening for that earthquake to occur.
It was the first time believers were meeting since Judgment Day. To hear how Harold made sense of it all.
People look pretty pissed.
The first couple days, I was so bewildered. It was difficult. Boy, did I do a lot of praying. And I've been praying ever since for a lot of reasons. And but finally, I was reading in a little newspaper article about what my friend...
In his talk, he gave a long explanation of how a newspaper article helped clear his confusion.
The minute I read that, the light...
Where does he get the money? Keep doing these talks?
And then...
So, his church group, Family News Radio, has been around for a very long time. And so, I mean, they have money. It was just one day he woke up and started reading the Bible in a slightly different way. He said, oh, wait, I guess the world's going to end.
Suddenly,
but it wasn't like he came out of the gate with May 21st is going to happen and the world's going to end.
Was not bewildered anymore.
That was a development. And you can see he's old. I mean, it came to him much later on.
Spiritually, Judgment Day has begun.
Is it still around? Well, let's finish the documentary before we spoil it.
Love your neighbor as yourself, you know? And that's what I tried to show him, you know?
No more cameras. I'm sorry to be so tough about this, but it's not accomplishing any good of any kind. God has used the press in a wonderful way, but now that's done. Okay? All right, I know that doesn't fit in your plan, but I can't help that.
There was just a lot of bad feelings and emotional stuff
he's
that we're dealing with.
I don't think he's a bad guy.
So
at all. I think, I mean, obviously he made...
and I think it's going to keep being challenging.
He should have...
always been there as the end.
He should have really wrestled with, you know, even if he believed it was the end of the world, does it do anything to his immediate followers if he doesn't tell anyone? Let's say he really believed it. And then if he's like, well, I need to tell people so they can become believers before the end of the world, maybe, but like even still, like you can just keep saying the same thing.
And that had always been there. So I'm not going to say now, well, we had that wrong, so probably that's wrong, and probably that's wrong. You know, that would just be foolish. But that's wrong there. That date had always been there as the end. That had always been there. So I'm not going to say now, well, we had that wrong, so probably that's wrong, and probably that's wrong. You know, that would just be foolish.
That's such a great line.
But I'm not focusing on it at all.
Family Radio will say even just having a T-shirt, a bumper sticker is an easy way to warn others of Judgment Day. You know, and I put that sign right here in my front yard.
I think he really believed it, Jay.
Like I have to warn my neighbors, and I'm kind of shy to actually approach my neighbors. Because we didn't want to get them out in the morning, you know, everyone seeing us, you know, so I told them, get the signs out and throw them over the fence. And it woke the dog up, you know. Yeah. I didn't feel relieved. I felt like just confused, mostly just doubting all the years that I listened to Family Radio from the commandments, like my son said, of leaving the churches. Is this false? I felt like, why are people making plans for an education and things like that? And when Judgment Day is coming,
yeah, that's terrible
there's
stuff,
no time
man.
for that. So I was kind of like, yeah, I should be crying, praying to God that I should be saved. So I was looking less for work. Now I know I have to get on, really be looking for work.
when it got later and later. 10 o'clock turned to 11, then 12, then 1. We understood that it wasn't something that was going to happen after all. We were changing gears and going from that hype of
That's what I mean. Like, just do your normal thing.
Earthquake and this and that and the other, to just kind of settling back and taking a
I mean, if you want to take a vacation, maybe do that.
Happen. It may never happen that way. Did we put out a message that was wrong? And if so, you know, how are we to look at that in view of our participation? And a lot of us were very troubled about that. How did this happen to us? You know, we're not illiterate. We were all coming from different walks of life, but yet we weren't necessarily naive people that this could happen so easily too. We're finding our center again, and we're having to do it in a way that's drastically different from what we were doing before.
I mean,
our reliance on family radio and their music and their messages is not part of this household anymore, where it had been for 15 years.
That seems pretty reasonable, Fume.
Does the amount of time that you put into something make it valid and truthful? The days preceding May 21, I felt like a lot of questions were answered. Right now, we certainly have proven that we don't know everything, you know. I don't think anyone can pretty much hold on to that claim. So yeah. Who knows? Who knows? I don't really know.
Maurice's not knowing was different from his certainty before May 21.
Hey. Yeah.
Oh God, they're gonna hook him up again.
How did this change show up in the experiment?
And answering the questions, since the statements were more or less the same, did you feel any different about them? For example, one of the questions was, Harold Camping is capable of making mistakes.
Yeah, I think I answered true on both of those.
Both before and after you answered true to that. Okay.
I think I did. I hope I did.
Before May 21, Maurice responded straight away. He immediately knew whether a Judgment Day statement was true or false. But this time, he took much longer to answer.
So your brain took more time to arrive at a decision, I'm guessing.
Yeah, mostly because of trying to define what Judgment Day is. It's kind of the most trouble that I had with. I don't quite know how to define that or exactly know what that is. So that I don't know. That's what led to kind of difficulty of that question.
When answering those difficult questions, Maurice's scan showed increased activity in areas that neuroscientists have linked to the presence of internal conflict. There was also activity in a frontal area of the brain, implicated in introspection and thinking about our own thoughts. And in rethinking his former beliefs, Maurice was left with the question, how could something that fit together so perfectly not be right?
All of us have some belief
metacognition?
that really we
That's
should
a cool
let go
word.
of, because there's no longer any evidence to support it. The choice is often one that requires integrity and courage and guts. That's why it is difficult for people to say, I was wrong.
Metacognition, Shepard.
The problem we have is
I
not
like
from
that.
bad people who do
A
bad
lot.
things. It's from good people who justify the bad things they do to preserve their belief that they're good people. And that's the heart and soul of dissonance theory. Once you know how it works, you can see it in action, we can see it in ourselves, and we can take steps to break out of it.
We don't cope well with feeling wrong, with dissonance. Our natural reaction is to get away from it, to get ourselves back to a state of feeling right. But in our desire to be right, we are at risk of turning our beliefs into certainties and mistaking them for the truth.
We have understood correctly, very correctly.
If Harold Camping and his fellow believers show us one thing, it is that the feeling of truth inside us,
where's my soul of dissonance,
is no indication of how right we really are.
Monster
But
Hunter is a
despite the
great series that
extraordinary
has many more
content
great
of their
years
belief,
ahead of it.
They had still arrived
Not
there
a Hunter Pass.
by the same search that governs us all.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be alright. Rise is good. Rise is great right now.
Although you can obtain some truths, but to cover all truth is a continual search. It's a continual seeking.
And buying more Capcom. I'm literally buying more Capcom stuff.
Yeah, that pretty much frames up what May 21st was all about, doesn't it? Everyone who was drawn to May 21, you know, they were searching for truth. And now that May 21 has passed, those same people are continuing to search for truth. They haven't given up. They haven't given up. No one has given up.
Blind guy won a match in Street Fighter 6. That's awesome, man.
For some reason, they have faith that it's out there.
They added a lot of accessibility options.
I do too.
I mean, I think... Oh, so before October even came, he had a stroke. And then a year later, he said, oops. It was old. I mean, he was, what, 90? He seemed like he was pretty much out of it when they were talking to him, but you had an end of day barbecue? That must have been fun. Interesting that he was still willing to believe. She seems like she really believed. Oh! She must have been pissed. Well, hey. Am I still alive? Get me out of retail. A group believes Judgment Day did happen in May 21st. They continue to wait for the end. Maybe Albino is right. Maybe that's when everybody was replaced by NPCs. All right. I'm going to go to sleep. Everyone have a great day. Probably do a little bit more dose tomorrow. Talking about Rise, I actually was kind of thinking about adding in the Hazard Amatsu quest. I've only ever fought Amatsu once. I'm not saying I'm going to stream it. I'm just thinking about it. All right, everyone have a great night. See you tomorrow. Have a good one.